I personally think that hearing from a peer, somebody who is in the same shoes as you, who recently went through the process, is more impactful than somebody like us telling you, like, do this, don't do this. So we'll start with that, advice from alumni. And then we'll kind of break it, you will just kind of follow the chronological sequence of events. So what you should be doing before the interview, you should be doing the day of interview, how soon should you get there, should you be there early, less early, interview questions, what kind of questions that you should ask. So in Matt's, so that's a great example. So you shouldn't go into the interview only to just kind of like passively present what you have, right? You should show them. It's kind of the first example of a person-to-person direct interaction where you're trying to convey to them, like, this is how engaged and energetic and curious I'm going to be if you hire me, right? And I'm working on your projects. And after the interview, how to follow up. And then we'll touch a little bit on, so let's say things went well, you got the job, how do you keep that job, right?
Yeah.
And then looking ahead, just touch on licensure. So this is a few questions that we asked alumni, recent alumni. So we asked her, what was the most challenging or surprising at the job interview? Did you feel well prepared? Who did you consult about salary and benefit package, and what was the negotiation process? What do you do? What do you wish you could have done differently? Right. So these are the questions that we asked, and this particular alumna was very happy. Sent me a lengthy email because I mean it's a tough process, and she was happy to share her lessons learned. So the most surprising, I'm going to actually step over here so I can read better. The most surprising, so what I find challenging is to synthesize each project. So she talked about her portfolio. There's a ton of compression that has to happen in the portfolio, because I mean it's, in some cases 5 years worth of your life that you have to condense down to just a few pages and a few minutes. And so you have to have, it takes a high level of critical thinking to be able to get out of the weeds and not fuss about the details and really just convey the essence, right? What did you attempt and what were you successful at? So that synthesis was difficult. So you're presenting, and the way that you want to kind of present the project should be based on your research of the firm, so that you're highlighting the things. Maybe it's a certain skill set or kind of building types. You're highlighting those things that that the firm is looking for, right? You present it a little differently. So don't get carried away, right? So it's easy to get carried away. So because again, it's not your final review presentation. It's not even your mid-review presentation. It's really high-level executive summary, right? So persons, and if you do forget, and if you do get carried away and get into too much detail, don't be surprised if they stop you, right, and redirect you. And just be thankful of that reminder, and then go back to the high level description. They don't have the time, okay? Right. Best way to prepare to study the firm before, so you can never be fully prepared, is be yourself. So that can't be, I couldn't agree with that more. It's just be yourself. So in other words, it's not so much the questions, the questions that they ask and the reason why they have you, tell us, and actually she does say that, tell me about yourself. They really do say, tell me about yourself. I mean, such an open-ended, question. You don't get asked questions like that very often. But, so it's not really about like the actual like content that, they're looking for. They want to see how you react. How you kind of think on your feet and how you present yourself verbally, right? So I did feel she felt prepared. So a plug-in for the AIS portfolio workshops. So she took advantage of that. So it helped her get better prepared. Concepts and process, I think towards the end of as you put together a portfolio, there's so much emphasis on the visuals, on the graphics, layout, does it look good, all that. And you have to kind of like study your own project so that you remind yourself what the project concepts were about, right? So make sure you do that. And sometimes when it's been a while, so let's say, this is 2 years from now and you're presenting your third year work, so that could have been easily 5 years ago. you'll forget, right? So even though it was really an intense experience 5 years ago, you'll forget. So it's really important that you brush up and kind of and at that point you might highlight different things because it's now work that's 5 years old and you have new work that you want to spend more time on. So you might want to present it a little differently, right? So you should always rehearse and practice before you go. Well, I thought this was interesting. So when you practice with your portfolio upside down from you, so that it's facing the right way for the interviewer who's across the table from you, right? So get really familiar with where to find things, the sequence of how you would walk them through. Do the research. Oh, so this is research specific to the person. So sometimes you get to find out the name of the person who you will be meeting with, and sometimes you don't. But when you do get the name, where should you go to find out more about them? That's public information.
On their website?
If they have a website, go to their website. What else? LinkedIn, right? So, if it's, I don't know. I think it's safe to say, almost every professional architect, every architect will have a LinkedIn profile, right? And that's public. That is information that they are sending out to the world, right? So it isn't stalking. It isn't, prying into their private lives if you look them up on LinkedIn. In fact, they would kind of expect you to have done that. And what are the benefits of doing that, of looking somebody up that you're going to meet for the first time on LinkedIn?
Easier to communicate with them, hold the conversation a lot better. For instance, you can talk about one of his previous projects and kind of relate to that. Because if you don't know who you're talking to, it's harder to kind of break the ice.
Yeah, so it's just easier, it's a tough thing, because there's as you, the person who's seeking that job, there's so much at stake, especially if it's a job that you really want. So it can be very uncomfortable. You can be kind of tense, and all of that is communicated. And so, if it's helpful, you can you can envision the interaction a little bit more, find out more about the person if you do the homework in advance.
Right.
And sometimes, it's such a small community. Sometimes you're going to see overlaps. That's the school that, my faculty went to, or that's the firm that somebody's friend is, whatever. So you're also looking for those networking overlaps.
And in LinkedIn, sometimes just to the right side, there's a column that shows an association. So you may know someone in that column,
right.
that
somebody,
knows
a mutual, contact,
yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And by also looking at the profile of that individual, there may be projects or their experience that you're personally aligned with. So you may think of a project that you did at school, or your thesis, or your conviction about architecture, and it aligns with that person's thinking as well. So that's another entree to show your personal, professional self and reaching out to that interviewer.
Like, how should you mention these info about their LinkedIn?
That you look them up?
Yeah.
I think you can just be very open and say, to prepare for this interview, I looked for your LinkedIn profile and I came across such and such.
It's a professional network, so it's really above board. That's actually how we all connect to each other.
It's expected. When we put out the LinkedIn profile out there, the expectation is that that's what people are going to see and find out about me, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, do your research. Okay, the negotiation. So she was very thorough, and she covered all her bases. And so, so this is, how did she negotiate for the salary and the benefit package? So don't say the number first. That's kind of, I don't know. So the negotiation techniques, it's, some of you, it might come naturally. For others, it might be difficult. But this transcends, discipline, right? This applies to everything. But I thought this was really well done. So she reached out to 3 different people, more experienced than her, to get advice. So, within her own family, somebody who's not in the profession, but just somebody who has more life experience and just knows about negotiating techniques more. Somebody who's an architect, so who's in the profession, so there's a little bit more relevant information about range of salaries or typical benefit packages. And then somebody who's more of a peer, right? But just a couple of years ahead, who's gone through, like in his 3rd job, right? So he's gone through this process 3 times, right? So you should all kind of think about who those people might be, or if there's somebody else, beyond these categories that you could lean on for advice. And I have to say, when it comes to salary negotiations, how many of you have had the experience where you reached out to, whether it was your peers or your faculty or your mentors, where you asked them for help and it was really warmly received, enthusiastically received, and not like, I'm too busy, or more like, I'd love to, offer what I share my experiences. Like, have you guys had that experience yet? If you haven't, reach out and you will get that reception. Salary negotiation, especially for your first job in the profession, in the discipline, it's such a tricky thing. You don't have a lot of leverage, right? You don't have, there's not too many things that you can use in your negotiation techniques to convince them to, pay you more. And so I think many people are very, very sympathetic to that, because we all remember our first jobs and our first negotiations and all the things that we wish we could have done differently or had known before. And so I would kind of, become extroverted in this regard and really reach out and seek advice.
So if you never have experience before, then you can't really negotiate.
But you still should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what she did was, so she said, when they give you the offer, don't accept it on the spot. Like, go home, and consult the people, your father, your mentor, and your peers. This is what I got. What do you think? Should I ask for more? And in the end, she asked for more. Right? She asked for 8.5% more, and they came up 5%. That's something. That's.
So like when they offer the job, they give the offer, right? So either you accept it and take the job, or what if that's the case, right?
If you want to decline the offer?
No. Like usually I feel like when they offer the job, right, and then
On the spot.
Yeah, like the salary.
That doesn't typically happen.
Oh, okay.
So.
I think you go at the point where they give you the salary, like you
wanna
go
take
think
it?
about it.
Oh.
Are you like insulting them?
Like are you like taking the job on like?
So I think I understand. So thank you. So I think the question is, so let's say that you went to an interview and then maybe a couple of days later you received an offer package. Like, this is your salary. So it usually doesn't happen on the spot.
Oh, so they don't offer.
Yeah, so usually it'll be emailed to you or something, you'll be called or something. But they offer you a package. Here's your salary, here's your benefits, and then now the ball's in your court. You have to respond. So of course, please respond right away. Be gracious, extremely, delighted with this offer, whatever. But there's no obligation for you to accept it right away. And if you say, and be humble and be respectful and say, I would love the opportunity to ponder this over, a couple of days, over a day. Please do let me know if there's if this is time sensitive and if that timeline doesn't work for you, right? Because, they don't want them to go to the next person, right? But to ask for more time is not, should not come up. They should not take it as, oh, this person doesn't want to work for us. Like, it should not come across that way. It's your livelihood, right?
Because
It's a life decision.
I asked some of my friends about this, and they say that the firm they kind of offer the salary in the interview as well. So then that's why I see.
And was it a good number? Was it a good package?
Yeah, it's.
If it's good, then take it, right?
Yeah.
But I personally don't condone. So let's say they know that you're new in the profession and that this is your first interview, that you haven't had a job like this before, and you may or may not know what is a reasonable comparable package, salary and benefits package. And if they lowball you, if they offer something that's low and expect you to take it on the spot, that to me is unethical.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with you asking, I will, I need to consult my mentors and my family members, and I will get back to you.
And that's actually a very professional way too, because so one way that you are conveying, if you just express to the interviewer that you would like to ponder or think about this, is they will also understand that, well, you have an ability to understand what you're thinking about as well. and that you're not a rush to the moment person, right? So the thoughtful part is also conveying another kind of message. Something that Karen pointed out, base salary and the benefits. So there is a difference, and we'll get into that. Is it the next few slides? Because there's a difference between base salary plus the added benefits, and often when you're first starting, you may not be clear, is the base salary including these health benefits that would come with a full-time position plus 401k? And sometimes I know that our grads have actually made that mistake. And then what happens is your base salary is actually lower because they gave you a complete number that includes benefits. So it's actually even like 10, 15% lower than other base salaries like your other peers. That's happened before. So that should be clear during the interview or when they make that offer.
Yeah, a couple questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also, I mean, with that, also, you have to consider, like, what is the actual, like, median that architects
Yeah,
get
so
paid?
Yeah.
we'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And we'll point to some resources where you can do, like let's say you're going to do this again in a year, a couple of years, you can go back to those resources to see what the updated numbers are, to find out what the comparable, the median is. Another question in the back? What Gloria is talking about is, so for full-time permanent positions, there's the paycheck that you take home every 2 weeks or whatever, and then usually they also offer health insurance, dental insurance. There may be other benefits, that covers other expenses, right? So those are, you can opt out of it. You can opt out. So like for example, let's say that you're married and through your spouse you're covered. Medical, all those benefits are coming through your spouse's, employment, and you want to opt out of it, you can do that.
That's why it's important to know that you are talking about the base salary primarily, right? Yeah.
So for example, I mean, if you wanted to, go down that line, if you feel like you have again, this is where it gets tricky because you don't want to sound too standoffish, but if you're opting out of the benefit, it's at least worth asking, because I'm going to opt out of the benefits, can you raise my base salary? It's like most people don't want to do that because it's a separate buckets of money.
Yeah.
But it's worth asking. Yeah.
When you say that I will consult with my mentor, like, does it mean to them that you are accepting the job? It's just
No,
just,
you didn't say yes.
okay,
So unless you say I accept your offer, you're asking for time. So if you want to be very explicit, I'm extremely pleased with this offer, so that they don't, it's not conveyed,
down, like,
right, it's not considered, like I'll tell you this, so if you've done the research, and if you should have a number. You should have a number that you want to be offered. And if you get offered a number within that range, and if that's the job you want, you should take it. Right? But if it's low, you're also comparing, so let's say you're going on a job interview tomorrow, and it's comparable, or you like that one more, you say, I'm conducting a series of interviews this week, and I'd like to consider all the offers on the table. And don't be shy about saying that. I mean, that's the reality. These are for-profit relationships. That's the reality. They're doing the same thing.
Okay, so say if you have multiple offers in a different office, and say that an office that you weren't interested in before gave you a higher number, can you negotiate with them like, hey, this office gave me this number?
The short answer is yes, but it can also backfire. So you want to do research. So so the scenario that I become aware about is where that happened, but the company that was approached to ask to match the number was a very small firm, kind of. So and we'll see the firm sizes also offer different salary and benefit packages, and so to ask a small firm to match a large firm's number, they kind of took offense with that because they didn't want to be compared as apples to apples to this corporate firm and their firm. So you want to do research. Go on lots of interviews. This is really good advice. So let's say that you send out tons of resumes and you're getting things are going well. So you're getting calls about interviews, and you get a call from a company that was kind of I'm not that into that company, or I'm probably not going to work there. But they offered you an interview. Should you accept or say no?
Yep.
Accept. What are the benefits of you going on that interview, even if you think you're not going to take that job? Practice, right? Practice. And also, you might be surprised, right? So going on an interview, it's kind of like, I don't know, like it's the difference between, there's only so much research that you can do online indirectly, and going to the place and meeting the people and seeing the culture in the office, even during that brief visit, it reveals a ton. So you might change your mind, right? So you always go on interviews. So don't be shy. This is strictly business. I can't stress that enough, right? It's business. Nobody is doing this. They are not hiring you out of the goodness of their hearts, right? They are hiring you because they feel like you can help them become profitable. And so you should do the same. So budget. So in order to kind of determine what is an acceptable range of salary that you hope to get, you should create your own personal budget. Right, and when it gets to that point where there's a back and forth in the negotiation process, you might share some of that with them and say, this is a number that would force me to move or force me to whatever. Right, this is a number that doesn't help me support myself. Right. What could you have done differently? So it's a full-time job. It's going to not only take a lot of time now, but during the interview process. So if this is happening in the summer after you graduate, it takes a lot of time to prep, to individualize the portfolios, to rehearse, to follow up. And in many, many cases, there will be more than one interview, meeting with different groups of people. So it's going to take a lot of time. And so the one thing that she regretted was she had made all these travel plans over the summer, and it was really tricky to schedule all these interviews around her travel dates, and she wished that she hadn't booked the travels in advance. And she's very happy at her job. She's a great fit for where she is right now. Before the interview, so we've said this before, we can't stress this enough, you gotta look them up. Right? So the reason that Matt, or what will help you, so in Matt's case, in the instances where he was offered the position because he was more engaged in ask questions, it's going to be really hard for you to ask intelligent questions. It doesn't, so your questions have to be good questions, right? It's going to be really hard to ask intelligent questions if you don't know enough about them, right? So it's a must. So you have to look them up. Research, rehearse. Recording yourself is not a bad idea. It reveals a lot. Have you guys ever done that? Recorded yourself and listened to it?
Do it on your phone.
It's very enlightening. Like, I do that?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So use it as a way to, get better, right? It's a skill. You're going to get better. Never turn down an interview. Practice. And then also it's a good time for you to reflect. I know your immediate goal is to, get a full-time job. But you want to be able to discuss your longer term plans, because it will come up, and if it doesn't come up, you should bring it up, right? And how does talking about your kind of goals and aspirations 5 years from now or 10 years from now, even if they change, right? And you can fully own the fact that they can change, but the fact that you're thinking about that far down the road, what do you think that says about you to the interviewer? Determination, that you have an idea, you have,
right.
You're serious about your career.
You kind of have a plan in your career that what you want to be.
Right.
Not just that you just lost right after school, don't know what to do. So it kind of more of I think saying to be more of a leader, like my thinking is most what would want.
So words like leadership and engagement and having a personal plan for like self-empowerment, betterment, all those things came up. It also says that you're not just looking at going through this job interview process just to pay rent. right?
Yeah.
It's not that you just want to, go to somebody, the highest bidder, and pay rent, right? It's a great opportunity for you to kind of reiterate or revisit why you chose this profession, and that there's aspects about their firm that you feel will help you fulfill your professional goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is the mentioning practicing for your licensing exam. Those are all good things because they're goal setting, and they also reveal your steadfastness in the profession. There is something, because I want to share this with Karen, with all of you. So do you say, I want to open up my own practice in a few years? Would you say that? And why wouldn't you say that?
Because then you sound like you don't really know what it takes to build up your own practice, or especially when you're barely starting, you're kind of over ambitious.
I think that's legit, though, meaning you personally have that as a goal, but the firm is also making an investment in you. They'll be spending time and money to groom you in the practice. And even though personally you have that goal with some of your classmates. So I know that I've stayed away from comments like that. I don't know if you feel the...
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a really good observation. I mean, if you kind of, switch roles, and if you were in the other, like in the firm's position, so, I mean, it is a huge investment. Like, it's
Yeah.
very costly for them to not only recruit, but also to train, right? And so it's a big investment, and to hear something like, this, you're just a stepping stone, and I actually have something else I want to do more,
Yeah.
but I need you right now. So that's why, that's
Yeah.
not the message you want to convey,
Right, yeah.
even if that is true.
Yeah.
You also don't want to like just say like, oh, I think I'm going to be working here in 10 years too. Right?
Yeah,
You wanna,
right.
like,
Don't be presumptuous. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Or just I'm trying to
Ju-
develop my skills in a way, or that way would you say then in
As your goals?
would you say that I want to develop or be kind of knowledgeable in certain like talk about kind of the experience you want, or what would you say?
A little louder.
Like what would you talk about then? Would you talk about kind of like, oh, I want to work on this, or kind of like,
Okay, so when you are talking about your 5-year goals, like I would start with like 1-year goal, 2-year
Yeah.
goal, 5-year goal. I think nowadays 10 years is too far out. But
Yeah.
anyway, when you talk about your long-term plans, so don't stay away from specifics. Even like where you're going to live, like which city, because you just don't know. But go back to the initial insight or motivation that drove you to this major, to this profession, and what made you stay. Because you could have transferred, you could have done something else. So go back to that initial passion, right? Because that's something that
Yeah.
we can count on, for the foreseeable future to be true, right? And that's what's driving all the hard work that you're putting in now as a student, and all the hard work you're going to be putting in as a practitioner when you graduate. Right? So stay with those kind of aspirational goals and away from like the specifics of, I'm going to be working in a, global firm doing such and such, right? So stay away from that. Reflect. Okay, so again, gathering intelligence about me or my business, research. So even if you're not meeting with the principals, and typically, if you do get to meet the principals, that'll be at the end of the process. And it varies. For an entry-level job, it's more likely that you won't, but you'll meet with somebody who is in charge, of the hiring. But even if that's the case, look up the principals, right? Like look at their bios. It'll be on their website. Look up their LinkedIn profiles. All right. Okay, rehearse the day of the interview. What to expect? How do you tell your story? And I think this is kind of a good guideline, right? So again, just kind of envision, I think it's very, very normal. You should expect yourself to be a little bit nervous, but not so nervous that you're not being yourself, right? So you want to make sure you've done the homework research, you've rehearsed enough, kind of, intimately, what it's in your portfolio, what's in your cover letter, so that you're comfortable, so that you're only a little bit nervous. On the flip side, you don't want to be too relaxed and casual, right? So that's inappropriate. That's not professional. You want to look eager. So even at the table, don't sit like this, right? I mean, lean forward, and you should always bring some kind of a note-taking instrument. pen or paper or something else, what does that show to the interviewer? If you come, you've got your portfolio and your drawings, and then you also have some, notepad and a pen. What does that show the interviewer? You could sketch something, yeah, you're right. So in the course of explaining, you could sketch something, but what else? You care, right? Because they might tell you things that are relevant, that you might want to look up, that you might want to, add to your activities or interests, right? You care, that you want to make sure that you don't, you keep a record of the exchange, the important details of the exchange, right? Which is why, faculty loves seeing students take notes during class, because it's a sign, we take that as a sign, they care, right? Let's kind of go back to this. There's a lot of exchange, body language, verbal communication, nonverbal communication, what's in your portfolio, what's on your face, on your expression. There's a lot going on. Yeah. And you're going to be very flustered, because you're not you, especially if this is earlier in the process. So at the end of the day, again, let's do a role play. Like if you're the other person and you're interviewing for a certain position and opening, and you're, interviewing like a bunch of other people. And like it's time to make a decision. So they're trying to decide, filter it down, narrow it down, like who should we pick for this one position? Like what do you want them to remember about you? What should it go back to? Like what are some things based on the previous 3 sessions of this workshop? What are some things that we can use to answer that question? Huh? What about the work samples?
Like, what are your strengths?
Yeah, right? So you definitely want them to remember your strengths, not so much your weaknesses. And what about, let's build on that. Like, so, great. Like, what about your personality?
You want to know that you can fit in the group or not.
Yeah, so you want to convey enough of your personality, because it's like, it's like any matchmaking, right? So it's important to prove that you have the skills, that you have, you've learned some things in school, but in a way, especially in a smaller firm, the kind of number one driver, if all things are equal, it's the fit, right? And there isn't like a one type of personality over the others that everybody's looking for. It's just what the culture is in the office, and how you as a person, as a whole person, can fit or not fit. They're trying to gauge that. So what are some things that we can generalize. So the thing that you should kind of try to convey the most is that you know how to work with others. Yeah, that you're excited about working with others, learning from others, right? That you're excited about the profession.
I feel like ability is just basic standards.
It's basic, yeah. It's like walking. Everybody can walk, or not. I mean, like not everybody, but so don't focus on your skills, right? It's just the minimum. So you want to be able to use the time to convey things above and beyond. So I think this is a moment where you go back to, your persona, your brand. You want to be true to yourself, be yourself. Don't do the duck and the dog. Like everything how you conveyed yourself in the visual material that you sent in that got you there, it should match in person, right? But it should now add a little bit more nuance, right? I'm a quiet person. I'm very thoughtful and methodical. I'm a people person. And I love being with people. I'm very chatty. I get energy from people. Whatever kind of that is. Like you want to make sure that you present yourself in that's true to yourself in a way that they think in a way that they consider it positive.
So actually, that aspect is almost that third memorable item when Matt mentioned about this back and forth exchange. That would be an imprint with them too.
Yeah.
So that would be the most. That's one of the more compelling, like third item in that piece.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be quiet and thoughtful.
Yep.
Because all sorts of personalities are in the workplace, and that's definitely appreciated. So I wouldn't shy away from that,
or don't fake not being.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Don't pretend like I shouldn't pretend to be Dylan.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's somebody
I
else.
know.
So,
But-
like
but-
for example, the things that are not gonna use to remember you by, oh, like that person was really good in Revit, or that person had even like awards, like that person had won like an award every semester. That person, I don't know, like some those kinds of things that are more quantitative, right? So you're looking for the qualitative. You want them to
Yeah.
envision you working with them in the office.
Yeah.
Okay. So things like, are you organized? Are you a good note taker? Are you a good listener? Like all great things, right? I'm gonna skip this because we covered portfolio. Strengths and weaknesses. So we kind of touched on this in the 5 and 10 year. You want to keep it general, but the strengths and weaknesses. So this is a tricky part. Either you will be put on the spot and asked to share your strengths and your weaknesses, or it might come out in how your work is presented. So how do we tackle this one? So like, of course, we're love to tell you about all my strengths, all the wonderful ways that I'm doing this. But what about the weaknesses? How do we broach
Right.
that, and how do we talk about that?
We talk about how we overcome our weaknesses.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't want to be in denial. Everybody has weaknesses.
Yep.
So don't be like, no, not really. Like I don't really, right? So, but you want to be truthful, right? Because we all do, and it shows a level of insight, right? But you want to but you don't want to just kind of, put yourself down and just list all of the things you're unhappy with yourself. But you want to, you don't have to go on. Just pick one, right? Pick one, and then immediately say, and here are the things that I'm doing to make to improve that. Right? I mean, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
So we'll get into salary. Any more questions about the weaknesses? So something that I personally often do is, so sometimes, because people are very complex, and there, what might be a weakness in a person or in a situation is actually a strength in different situations or in different contexts. And you can kind of use that.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I present as my strength is also the same thing as my weakness. Right? So what I tell them is that I'm aware of that. And which is why, so as a way to compensate for my weakness, I try to look for it in the group dynamic. So that I'm working with somebody, who can complement my weakness. But that's also my contribution to the group because I'm really good at that and I love doing that. And so, there's a balance. Yeah? Did I see a hand go up? No. So salary. Let's talk about salary. So there are many sources. And so this is where we have the benefit now of the vast amount of information that's available via the internet. So before this, even a few years ago, the AI salary survey was all we had really, like reliable, other than the anecdotal, like personal anecdotes from your friends and colleagues. And so what they do is it's a report that's published every 2 years, and they canvass, they get responses, something in the range of like 8,000 responses, 8,000 firms respond to the survey. And so it's national, so big firms, small firms, all regions of the U.S. And so there's a this is the categories. It goes more, but the lowest, the newbies are intern 1, and this is how the AI defines it. So intern 1, 2, 3, architect 1, 2, 3, and then it keeps going. But I cut it off there for now. So then they plug the number. So there's a matrix basically that has an average number for each of these positions based on firm size, based on the region. And also based on, I think now they have something based on the profit, the gross profit that the revenue that the firm generates, right? So some firms, just by the nature of what they're doing, they just generate less revenue, like affordable housing. Mm-hmm. They're not; those architects are not in it to make the big bucks, right? So it depends. But this is it's due out this year. So these numbers are from 2015. So for the Pacific region, which includes all of the Pacific states, for intern 1, it's about this, which is about $20 approximately. Does it seem low?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So I was.
For West Coast,
Yeah. So I was really happy to find that because it seemed like really low to me.
Yeah.
It was heartbreakingly low. So sorry? I know. So what I found is, I'm gonna come back to this. So there's also this website called Glassdoor. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh?
I kind of use that too.
Yeah. So Glassdoor, so they list job listings, but they also list salary. So for example, here's an ad for the Smith Group San Francisco office. So this is their ad. It got cut off, so I added it here. But for somebody who has 1 to 5 years, so not intern, not intern 1, their range was here, like 50 to 67. And then there's another source, and then this is where you can look up salaries, right? So based on the title that you search. So when I type in under architect, so we get something more like this for San Francisco, okay? And then another source is this one. I believe this is Architect, but it's called the Architecture Salary Poll. So this one and the Glassdoor, these are all people. So they're not, what's the word, fact-checked. This is volunteer information from the people in the profession. So you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. But it's from the employees, not the employer, right? So this one, same thing. So you can do search. So you can submit your salary info, and then you can do searches. And so for San Francisco, I'm getting things like this, and this gives a little bit more. So there's male, age range, has a grad degree from Pratt, has less than 1 year of experience, and that person is getting $55,000 a year, right? So use these resources. It varies a lot, right? So sometimes it's 60, sometimes 20 per hour. Should be per hour. So that's like 40,000, right? So the range varies a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Glassdoor also will have the individual opinions from professionals as well. And just like Karen said, though, take it with a grain of salt because there are...
It's like the wiki.
Yeah. So you just have to balance out the reviews that you see.
So don't, just remove the ones that seem extreme.
Yeah.
Just move those out of the picture.
Yeah.
Right? So like we get, I don't know what that's about. That can't be, but so don't accept an offer like that. But so we get everything from low 40s to 60s, 50s and 60s. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this real quick to just...
They're getting shocked, Karen.
They're getting
on
shocked.
The salary.
I know.
Yeah.
So this is something. So the AI. This is from the AI survey. So what it includes actually. It's a multi-page. It's like a book. They ask a lot of questions, not just salary. So this is 2 of the questions that they also ask. So they ask, do you compensate? Do you give them more money, like salary, if they're licensed, right? And so let's see. So about a quarter of them say no. The rest of them do. So 10% or like this much offers 10% more, 5% more, or 5 to 9% more. So the majority, like about 3/4 of the firms, recognize the value of you being a licensed architect adds to the firm, and they will compensate you. They'll pay you more money, right? And then the other one is BIM and Revit expertise. So it's about a little less than half. This used to be much higher before. But now that the BIM expertise and the Revit expertise in the new entry level, it's become more prevalent. It's become less of a precious commodity. What do you think this graph is showing? It's kind of a sad one. Yeah. So we have average compensation, the years. So we're like here right now. Does anybody remember what happened in 2008, 2009? Yeah. So whoa.
That was a good year to buy a house, though.
Huh?
Well,
so it just, you don't have to worry about this right now because we're in a boom right now. But just in the longer term, just keep this in mind. So this will tie nicely into once you get a job, how do you keep your job? So what this means is that this dip, it's going to happen, right? It's not if, it's when, right? So, recessions come and go, economy goes up and down, and architecture we're the canary in the coal mine. When things are looking financially bleak, the first things that people cancel are construction projects, right? So we really feel it. We're very, very susceptible to the swings. And so what this means is that, so this kind of a dip, like that dramatic of a dip, that means that they're letting go of people that they want to keep because they can't pay them, right? So something like this is, okay, let's get rid of the non-performers, right? And let's really only keep the ones who are performing well. But sometimes it's really bad that, they don't want to, not because it's not based on their performance, it's just the math.
Yeah.
The projects are not coming in, they can't make the payroll. Right?
And also those moments, the 2008, 2011, is also when we see statistics that the younger professionals tend to drop out of the profession. So you have to really sustain your bigger goal. You need to find opportunities to keep working in this profession, no matter what, because then there's another set of statistics that come later. And so we begin to see how the economy affects those of us that can sustain. We've probably gone through 3 or 4 of these things in our careers. It almost happens like every 8. It's around that.
In that cycle. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to, okay, what to wear? Flip flops, beach hat. So for some reason, there's only like 3 women today. But in the past, I don't know. Are you curious about makeup? That question has come up in the past.
Yep.
Should you wear makeup? How much?
Also, even
if you feel like you've got a handle on it, we don't have to go there.
Even fingernails.
That's true.
There was you have to
nails.
be very subtle,
Yeah.
very gentle and subtle.
So what is this? So now for everybody, both what is this communicating? What you're wearing, and what your hair it's And what's that self, that persona that you want to convey to your prospective employers? Serious. That you care about, what you wear.
I mean, at least I can find out that you know what kind of occasion that, like, you don't just dress up like t-shirt or whatever.
Appropriate. You understand what appropriate attire calls for that occasion. Yes.
Also develops trust. Trust some people, they're more presentable.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yep.
It's funny because I've seen people asking as well, like, have formal attire when you come to interview. Like, it's a thing where a firm has to tell the person they're interviewing, like, come when you're
Dressed up. Dress your best.
Yeah. Like,
Uh-huh.
don't come in and like.
Right.
Yeah.
And also,
I think I see it more in San Francisco because like these tech company,
Oh yeah.
they gotta have people come in with t-shirt and this whole thing. That's why they kind of have to address that you should dress up for architecture.
so we are not the tech industry. Just,
Yeah.
Right.
I want to say that maybe it's safe to just wear something like semi-business. What is it? Business casual, right? Because I heard lots of people there saying that, oh, why the hell you wear like all suit tight? I mean, it's too formal. And some people think that, oh, why are you wearing like a t-shirt or something? Maybe just in the middle, like semi-business or business.
A shirt.
Tuxedo?
Can I be
So not tuxedo. Like don't be inappropriate.
I have something to say.
Even if the workplace,
It's very like you don't think that can happen, but I interview a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that I interview. They don't brush their teeth. And
They don't wear.
Brush their teeth. They don't brush their teeth. Oh my gosh.
some of them don't shower. So like if you cannot even take care of your own self, how can you work for me? It's like, and some people at school,
So
you can tell.
do good personal hygiene, extra attention on that day. But the reason why you should always overdress, you should never be dressed at the same level as the person who's interviewing you. And you should, God forbid, never be underdressed. You should always be overdressed. Okay? Even if after once you get hired and now you're working, you can match the attire. If it's like business casual or jeans and button-down shirts, fine, you can do that, but not at the interview. Okay? Okay, so the interview, right? So even if the workplace is casual, you should not be casual for the interview. So don't wear jeans. So this is why, right? So you want them to envision yourself being the most professional self, able to where I can envision bringing you to a client meeting, and you're gonna know what the appropriate attire is, right? So think of it at like that. So you should always be overdressed. So you should always, so guys should always wear a suit. Okay, so if you don't have one, you should get one. So the tie is kind of a little bit. So if you're not sure, wear the tie. If you know for sure that it's so laid back, it's such a small firm, family firm, they're so laid back, it's going to look ridiculous. Just wear a button-down shirt and a suit and no tie. You could wear bow ties.
That's legit.
Yeah, it could be part of that.
Yeah.
Bow tie, big tie.
It's up to you. So that level of
Because I'm used to wearing bow tie, but I'm not.
wear the bow tie.
Look tie to.
So I think the regular tie and the bow tie, this is where you can be yourself.
Yeah.
If you are somebody who's comfortable and have always worn bow tie, wear the bow tie. What about women? What should you wear? It's a little trickier.
Can you wear black slacks?
Yeah, slacks are always good.
Yep.
What should you not wear? Let's start there.
Yeah.
What should you not wear? Sorry? Yes, short dress. So don't reveal skin too much. No sundress. No, nothing. So think of it. Let's like paint what you don't want to wear. So something that has. This is different from profession to profession, firm to firm. So let's say you're in, not in architecture, but another kind of creative industry where kind of your fashion sense and your boldness is something that is seen as a positive. You should wear loud prints and accessorize, and right, because it's part of it's like in a way it's part of your portfolio. But architecture is not. And there are different levels of kind of like seriousness, like in their attire, the conservative attire, like dress codes in the office. So you should first look that up. So in general, like if you're not sure, in general, don't call attention to what you're wearing. Where should the attention be? In your work. So what that means is for women, tone down the makeup is my personal advice.
Yeah.
Don't wear such heavy makeup that you like. Don't wear anything that you wouldn't otherwise wear to work every day, right? Don't do the clubbing makeup, the going out makeup. Don't do. It's very distracting. It should be on the work, on your portfolio. Okay.
I think also make sure that you wear shoes that you really feel comfortable with.
Yeah,
so
wear
wearing
sensible shoes.
Yeah, because the tall stilettos, even though you
Don't do that.
you can run in them. I know some of you guys can do that, but that doesn't help you when you
again,
get up
like,
and
it's
you're
the work,
yeah,
not
exactly.
the shoes.
Yeah.
Question, so if the interview you have to be formal, like with suit cover up with everything, but then say if you have like a full sleeve tattoo, and then like when you do get that job, you come in like business casual, like what Dylan's wearing. Is it like, would that still be okay? Like, oh,
The tattoo?
That tattoo.
That depends on the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, I think in this country, I don't think many people are going to hold that against you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Depends.
Right. Yeah.
It's like maybe some firms are like when they interview you, they didn't know that you have like.
Oh, like,
they might
no, that I don't think you don't have to worry about. So they're not going to say, will we rescind our offer? We didn't know you had an offer. They're not going to do that. Well, as long as you're a different person now. Right. Okay. Yeah, so again, like just rule of thumb. I mean, you can have tasteful jewelry and everything, but nothing that takes, again, attention away from your work.
So even guys with earrings, that's okay. It just has to, you know how delicate, do you guys know David Gill?
Yeah.
He has earrings, but most people don't notice that, right? So it's balance, yeah.
Of course, if you're interviewing at a kind of a hip, young office, it's a little different. If we're going to a very corporate, it's different, right?
Yeah.
So you have to tailor just like you would with your portfolio.
Right.
So what should you bring? Sorry.
Would it be still okay to wear like a crucifix or something that reflects your faith at that
Wow.
So in general, no. So I don't know if you remember. So when you submit your resumes and cover letters, and so don't reveal your religion, ethnicity. So in this country specifically, because we have such trouble with discrimination and minority, you just don't want to go there.
Even
right?
age.
Yeah. Don't reveal your
you don't
age,
need
your
that.
birth date. So just don't even put it on the table for
Yeah.
there to be even a shadow of a doubt that there was some question about that's why I got the job or didn't get the job. So in your attire, I mean, I don't know, if it's something that you always wear, you can tuck it inside your shirt. Unless you know that the firm is friendly to that or that's the focus of their work. I think it's unnecessarily again, bringing this topic onto the table where you didn't intend to. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, it should be about the work. Yeah.
I just heard that, and I've never noticed that, but around school actually you see, but they say like those secretary skirts are not welcome.
Like short skirts?
No, the ones that comes in
Knee-length skirts? You mean in our profession?
Yes. No, it's everywhere here, like in the office, like women are.
Oh, in this country, like in the Bay Area?
Yeah, in like North Brazil, like it's very common. Like most of women wear the long.
I haven't come across that.
Yeah.
No, you can wear knee-length skirts.
Knee length, but not minis.
Yeah.
Yeah, knee length.
Secretary, they call secretary skirts. Yeah.
Well, don't call
Oh.
them that.
Yeah.
Knee-length skirts are fine. What should you bring? What have we worked hard, to prepare your resume? Even if you sent it to them, even if you email hard copy, whatever, you should have your own copy, right? So your resume. If you have any recommendation letters, have that. Portfolio, definitely. And then, I don't know. Like I just think that just says so much about in a positive way about you and a list of questions, right? You should prepare in advance what you're gonna ask. So I mean, needless to say, but right, phone turned off, so nothing buzzing. And then so question, like what if your portfolio is digital and it's online and it's beautifully arranged on issue? And I'm going to bring in a tablet so that I can, or a laptop or something, so I can, use the screen to present my work. What should you do? What should you not do? Don't do this.
You have to have 3G or some.
Print
You
it.
have to have the wireless on your own, so.
Make it local. Download it if you're going to do that. So what are the things that could go wrong? So let's say, everybody's Wi-Fi nowadays. I'm sure the office has Wi-Fi. So I'm going to, bring and assume that I can make an internet connection. I mean, come on, right? 21st century. What are the things that could go wrong?
They don't want to give you.
They don't share their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and what if they're nice and sure, like they give you the code.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi is not working.
Yeah.
Yeah. It showed 15 minutes for your interview.
Yes.
5 minutes trying to connect it.
Yeah. There may be firewall issues. It's a new connection, right? So you can't, if everything goes well, you don't lose any time. You're not making the interviewer wait. But many things can go wrong. And I see it all the time, right? Either somehow it's mistyped and I have to type it, or they're trying to figure out what the problem is, or do you have a firewall? Why isn't it? So don't do that. Okay, so just download it, onto your tablet. Make it local. So I think this one you have to look at. So there are many things, but I think one of the things that you should look at is kind of like the age group, the demographic of the person who's going to be looking at it. So I think your guys, I'm going to venture a guess and say, you don't have a strong preference one way or the other, digital or print. But some of the older people might, right? So the non-digital natives, it might be, and they might see it as an extra effort to have to, look at it on your tablet. And they much prefer holding a beautiful printed book that they can browse at their own pace, and they don't have to turn it on.
And they go back and forth with a physical portfolio. That's the other part that's easier for them and different than on your laptop.
Yeah.
Right?
So for example, if you have a book that you've printed,
Yeah.
Bring it, even if there's new work that you're going to show in the tablet. Bring both. Bring the book. So I don't know, like it's always very impressive. And I think even for those of us who don't have a strong preference either way, the fact that you've done the extra work and have your portfolio printed and bound in this as a beautiful volume, that's impressive.
Right.
You should bring that as a physical artifact. You should have everything you need to present. So don't have keys, coffee cups in your hands, right? Put everything away. Don't, like, if you need coffee before, throw it away before you go into the office. So you're ready, like you're not holding pens, like you're ready to shake hands, right? Directions. Okay, how early? So we all know, I think it goes without saying, we should.
Back on the last thing, do you ever find that maybe drinking something in the interview gets bothersome?
Yes, always.
Because like sometimes I've had situations where I have something and if I bring it in, then I'm like, am I talking? Am I drinking? Am I listening to them? So sometimes I just don't do it.
Yeah. I would never drink anything, food or drinks, into the interview. Do it before and after, but don't bring it into the interview. It just changes the tone, right? This is not a casual get-together. This is not a business meeting. You want something desperately from them. And again, I think it puts the focus away from your work. Yeah, so don't bring it. How early? So I think we all know that don't be late, right? So parking, bridge traffic, no, doesn't fly, right? I mean, once you get hired, maybe you can use those as excuses, but to the interview, no, right? Never, no excuse is acceptable.
Shouldn't you like naturally be within the area? Like shouldn't you be there like I would say like an hour early, but within the area, but arrive to the meeting like 15 minutes?
Exactly, right? So if you know from your daily commute that when things get bad, it's going to add 40 minutes, then assume the worst and arrive early enough so that you can absorb that worst case scenario and just go to a coffee shop and hang out and wait. Yeah. But let's say something like truly unforeseeable happened, like completely beyond your control, and you're not going to make it on time. What should you do? Call them right away. Yeah, explain the circumstance, right?
So like usually you bring laptop and document, you have to bring backpack and maybe a document folder. So you wear suit and all that going to meet the person.
That's a good question. So the question is, so okay, you're wearing a suit, maybe even a bow tie, and you have a laptop and some printed matter. So you've got your laptop in your backpack and then another bag for your printed stuff. So do we bring all this into the, what do you guys think?
I think that would be sufficient. Like,
Yeah. Don't bring all that stuff if you can.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the question of laptops. What do you think about using laptops to present? It's hard to see, especially if the person is sitting in front of you. So it is very awkward. So if you can avoid it, please don't use laptops to present. Yeah. And so arriving too early is also a no-no, right? So don't like show off and say, oh, I'm so early. I'm 20 minutes early. I'm gonna like announce myself. Don't do that. They're busy, right? They expect you at that time, and so if you arrive too early, they don't know what to do with you. Okay, so like if you need to like use their bathroom or something before you ask the receptionist, like if you are going to do that, then maybe 15 minutes. But basically, you should be like right on the dot, like within 5-10 minutes. As early is okay, right? Okay, like it should be kind of basic like personal interaction dynamic stuff, but. Eye contact, I mean, sometimes, for many of you, this goes without saying, but make eye contact. Don't evade. Have you ever met people where they won't make eye contact with you? Disturbing, right? Yeah. Yeah, or they're looking at your shoes or something.
Yeah.
And for guys, if your interviewer is a woman, don't look at them below their neck. Okay. Don't look in their chest area. Just like give the wrong image. Okay, so you're alert, you're not yawning, you're kind of like a little bit, again, you don't want to be too relaxed, you want to be a little bit nervous, you're eager, polite handshake. And then the body posture, again, like so many, because they're taking in, like they're judging, like judgment, right? So everything you do, from what you're wearing to your expression to your handshake to how are you sitting at the table, so all of those things. So you want it to be, consistent. Like you want to convey, that you're somebody who's ready, excited, a little bit nervous, but excited for the opportunity, eager, right? So lean forward. Pen and note paper in hand. And then kind of like these last two are a little bit more tricky, right? So I think for, entry-level jobs, especially if it's your kind of first interview of that kind, you may do this even without you being aware, you knowing it, you might put yourself down. So don't do that, right? So again, they're not doing this in an altruistic way. They're hiring you because they really do need you, okay? You have something to offer. You might feel like, I feel not prepared, I feel like I need more training, I feel inadequate, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to perform well at this job. Let them make the determination. So don't downgrade yourself. But at the same time, don't overcompensate by too much, kind of obnoxious confidence, right? Be humble, but be certain and be confident in what you do have to offer, okay?
And I think part of that is to also remember not to use negative words.
Yeah.
So you may say something, you may want to say, unfortunately, I didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
Those
never.
are all like double, triple
Yeah,
negatives,
don't do
right?
that.
You just stay away from anything negative. That's something that just, in general.
Yeah. So as much as you can, unless it's glaringly obvious,
Yeah.
you don't have to reveal what's not there.
Right.
Just work with what you have in your portfolio.
Yeah.
So don't make excuses. So you might have heard some of this in the presentation.
Yeah.
Don't make excuses for what's not there, right? And then, so the last piece, when during the course of the interview you're asked a question and you don't know, don't wing it. Just be honest. Say, it could be as simple as, you didn't hear the question, could you please repeat the question or rephrase it, to, I don't know, right? Just be honest, okay? I mean, they know, so the kind of, again, if you do the role play, they know, they remember when they were in your shoes, they know that these are entry-level jobs and that you're just out of school, so you're not going to impress them with your knowledge about the practice, right? That's not what the position calls for, okay? Okay, be a good listener. I can't stress this enough. And this also ties, connects to how you keep your job. Do you know some good listeners in your lives? Can you think of some people who, like, that person is a good listener? Like, what are their habits or traits? Like, how do you know that they're listening to you or that they're good listeners? They don't talk as much. Good.
They don't interrupt you.
They don't interrupt you. Good.
Conversation, and they acknowledge what you say by adding to it.
Excellent, right? So the true test of if they of you knowing that they're listening to you is they actually respond to what you said, right? So it isn't just I say stuff and Yim says stuff and they're like kind of related, but it's not building on each other's thoughts. But it actually, I'm hearing what she says and I'm responding to it and adding something, right? So that's a conversation. Be a good listener. So during an interview, what might that look like? Because you're expecting to do a lot of talking because I got to get through like 5 projects in 10 minutes. But what might they be talking about?
Somebody asks you a question, you repeat the question with your answer.
Truly understand the question.
Say again?
Truly understand the question.
Truly understand the questions?
Truly understand what they were asking.
Truly understand. So try to but could they also be just kind of introducing the firm or themselves, or about the position, maybe some detail about the position, why they need to hire somebody over the course of the interview, right? So you want to be like steel trap at that point, right? It's full 100% attention because there's your opening to ask intelligent questions. Yeah. And then the second one. This one is where there's, did I have to? There's usually, the way kind of, these things happen, there's usually some kind of like introductory chit chat, kind of small talk. It may happen, before, during, or after. And just don't be surprised by that. Just again, be yourself, be comfortable. And if the conversation leads to, like, if the interviewer feels very comfortable and relaxed with you enough to, I don't know, share maybe some relevant activity on the weekend that they're going to do, and it's something that you also, I don't know, like if there's an affinity there, you can respond to that, right? You can share your kind of extracurricular life, yeah? Okay, so tell me about yourself. What should you start with? Tell me about yourself. So for example, when Jen and I interview prospective faculty, we always, this is the open line, but we always, tell me about yourself. Tell us about yourself. Are we waiting? What do we, I mean, because we've seen their resumes, we've seen their cover letters, we've seen their rec letters, we see the portfolio, but we still ask this. Tell me about yourself. What are we looking for? Yeah, we know a lot about them, where they went to school.
The natural thing you tend to do is go through the history of yourself, explain how you got up into that point.
Yeah.
So if you specify certain things about yourself that you want to tell them, then you're basically highlighting
Yes.
parts of yourself that you want to portray.
Right. So Matt's comment response was that this is an opportunity for you to highlight. There's a lot of information that they've received about you, so this is an opportunity for you to highlight, add emphasis to certain things. Did I see another?
Also, like the highlight should be specific on how you think that you will benefit the firm. Like maybe you research on the firm, like kind of the way that you explain yourself, how you fit in with that firm.
Yeah, if the opportunity arises, but I wouldn't I would strike a right balance. Like don't be, so just stay authentic, right? Stay authentic. So don't kind of remove yourself, your personality, your personal background so much in order to fit into what you think the firm wants. Yeah. So let's apply this scenario to you guys. So where's a good place to start? Like what's the next word out of your mouth? Tell me about yourself.
Just about kind of the things you want them to kind of take from you. For instance, you can say, I'm an artist, I'm an
Great. So
thinker. So like when you start saying stuff that how you put your passion going into the passion that you have for the field.
So what I heard was, so if you happen to have relevant interests or background, or maybe a previous major or something like that, whether you're an artist or industrial designer or whatever,
Right.
and that's something that is still important to you, that's part of your identity, that you want them to know, like be one of those 3 things that they remember about you. You can open with that. What are some other?
Can I tell a little bit, not just architecture stuff? Because
Sure.
I think that they might want to ask you that kind of question to find out maybe a little bit of your personality, your attitude to the job, like something like this.
Like what's an example?
Like I can just tell them that, I like basketball, I like this, I like that. Like,
No. You can do that at the end if you've charmed them enough, but not in the beginning. So this isn't like they don't want to hear about everything about you, and so again, like put the focus back on why you're there. Like you've chosen the architecture as a profession. Your work is there. You want your first job in the field, so keep it about that, like your choice. Okay. And whatever was the path that got you to, architecture, exposure, or a detour you took, maybe you started at something else and did this, or like something that's relevant to why you're there.
We have a makeup class for professional practice at 1 o'clock. Only 5 to 10. Can I be right?
Sure. Okay. And then so the small talk. So this is the first. Oh, how to introduce yourself? Let's see. So like what we would say.
Well, like what inspired you to be in this profession, to study? So what is your story? Like how did you discover architecture for yourself? Each one of you.
So like if go ahead.
Sorry, so I guess like in my case, for example, would
Mm-hmm.
Like chose to do architecture instead because it's more relevant, I guess.
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that. Like, because I didn't go all the way back to my whole drawing history. I just started where I really liked it.
Yeah, the relevant
Right,
point.
exactly.
Like don't rewind too much.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So for me, because I'm teaching now full time, so that's where my head is at. So the first thing that I would utter is that I would start with I love teaching,
Yeah.
and then I would kind of build on how I transition from practice to teaching and what I love about it, and what I'm excited about.
And like how long do you think you should be talking by yourself?
They'll guide you, but like a minute.
Yeah.
Just
So
start concise and
yeah. So basically, you should use it as a foray into, and let me show you in my portfolio what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I usually think about just 4 key points that would be memorable with them, because they will try to figure out, okay, how did you make this decision to be in the profession? And so you want that aspect to be memorable because they want to understand, well, where is that passion coming from? And even if it's not fully related, like I did stage set construction before architecture. And this is why I love being in the shop, right? So that's an insight, and I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just said, well, I started in stage set design, and I built these models, and then I realized a professor pointed out to me I should look into architecture. So those are the key things in their mind. Oh, they know you like construction. They know you understand how to assemble things. So you have to get value for one sentence. That would be my guide. And so you're trying to package even a little bit more than what they don't have, your resume and your portfolio, right? That individual personality. So like the teaching is real important because then for Karen, that's a methodical mind, but that individual also knows how to mentor. And they may see, wow, that's a valuable component in our office.
Right.
So,
And another thing that comes to mind is, you could start with what architecture means to you. Like at this point in time, you've got the degree, you're, in your job search, and what does it mean to you? Why are you excited about it? And you can tie it back to some kind of a personal narrative. Like how does it fulfill, a personal goal or aspiration that you have? Another really good place are all of the ethics and leadership presentations. Those are really great examples of openers or responses to questions like this, because that's what they're doing in the 5 minutes, right? That they share their story of how they got to where they are, right?
Yeah.
So small talk, just don't make that the main thing. Just kind of don't discuss politics. Don't discuss anything that again puts the focus away from your work. Be polite and be congenial, but that's not why you're there. Okay, so don't spend too much time. So again, like I like this quote because the questions that you're being asked to answer, it's about how you compose yourself, right? So that's what they're looking for. Like, what is your thought process? And especially when you're asked a difficult question, how do you conduct yourself, right? It can range from just being honest, I didn't understand the question, or I don't know how to answer that question now, but, these are the things that I think are related, or these are the things I would do, like to be ready, to be in a position to answer those questions. Sample questions. So there's a lot. I grabbed a lot of these from this particular website, but there's a bunch more. Why should I hire you? What is your long-range objective? How has your education prepared you for your career? Are you a team player? They're all kind of like, I don't know. I think they're all questions that we don't get asked every day. So we might be at a loss as to how do I, like, again, what you're looking for, your goal is how do I tie this into my personal narrative about my excitement about the profession, right? I mean, like the first question, in my opinion, like for me personally, I think it's a little obnoxious, but what are you going to do, right? So practice. Like think about what would be a good response. Again, the focus is always back to your work. Like they should hire you because of your work, what you're able to offer. Your greatest weakness, right? So again, like practice talking, identifying, and articulating your weakness and what you're doing to compensate. This is a good one.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a conflict with somebody who's supervising you? Should you, like, you shouldn't say, no, I've never. Because what are they looking for?
Like how to solve it.
One at a time. How you solve it, right? And were there other? Same? Yeah. Because, like, when you start your new job, you get offered, are you going to have conflicts? Yeah. Yeah. And so it's not that, you know, like, you're such an easygoing person, you've never had a conflict in your life, so we can assume that you'll never have conflict and, you know, when you join us. No, that's not why they're. So conflicts are, you know, it's a fact of life, but how do you resolve them? Like, do you resolve them in a productive way? Okay? These are interesting. They're all like very loaded questions. So this one particularly, so if you were to get this question, what's the content that you have to recall? So, so if you have asked for rec letters, or even if you haven't, you know, if you have references like that, you know, contact information that you're giving out, it should you should match your story, right? So in other words, the process of seeing yourself through other people's eyes, you know, the persona, the branding, you're managing that even as a student, right? Because the references that they you know, the context that you're going to give out, you know, that they're going to ask, like, so we're, you know, considering, you know, such and such for this position. What do you think, right? So you wanna know what that is, what that perception is. I don't think I'm going to go through all of this, but so things like the ideal job, what motivates you. So again, stay away from specifics. You know, stay away from the kind of city, the size of the firm, the salary. Go back to why you chose a profession, right? So what might be a good example of you know, answer to something like that, an ideal job? Let's try. Great. So what kind of change?
So the change would be more how people kind of react to certain spaces and how they actually invoke certain effects or emotions into it.
Great answer. Great answer.
Yeah.
Do the research, and then so what kinds of questions should you ask? So here's, like, you know, what I would recommend. You don't have to ask all of them. Like, you know, tailor them to the exchange, the dynamic, the rapport that you have built up, right? So what is asking these kinds of questions? What does it say about you as a candidate?
That you're very interested in one.
Yeah, that you're very interested, and you're thinking long term. You're interested in the big picture, and you're not just looking at it as, you know, a short term, you know, temporary matchmaking, you know, because I need certain things from you and you need certain things from me. You're trying to see how does this experience that you're asking for fits into your long range, kind of, you know, like you're on your path to becoming and practicing architecture. Right? So you want to see, well, I kind of have ideas about what I want to be doing long term, like, you know, affect change. Like, I'd like to hear, I know, you know, you can reference, you know, if there was a mention of it in a website doing your research, you could reference that and then ask them to verbalize it to you.
I've always asked the question, and this is usually at the end of the interview, is what kind of person are you guys looking for?
Yeah. Great. That's a great question. Yeah. Have them describe their ideal candidate.
Because at that point, it's like you've already described yourself.
Right. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So something like this, I think. So again, so you have more, or just as much stake in this, and both parties are operating on limited information, really, because they don't really know how you're going to fit in, how you're going to perform, and you don't really know what it's going to be like working there. So asking questions like this, you know, what are the projects in the office right now, and, you know, if I'm hired for this position, you know, what are some examples of projects that I would be put on, right? as well as what are kind of my day-to-day, what might my typical day look like, working on that project. Who am I interacting with? What kind of tasks am I doing? What does this tell the interviewer? That you're envisioning yourself working there,
Yeah.
right? That it's not something that's abstract, because you're thinking about your 10 other interviews that you've scheduled. You're actually imagining yourself being within that office working for them.
I think there was a word 2 sessions ago that Karen brought up, which is the culture of that particular workplace. And those 2 questions would help you paint a framework of how that firm works. And that is a way to begin to understand, is that the place that you feel that you can fit into?
Yeah, and then, these are, I think, also really great questions, right? So asking about how the firm supports interns, towards their licensure. That again, don't think of it as, I'm asking for freebies, or I'm asking for, what are you going to do for me? But it tells them, present it in a way where you're very committed to the path to licensure. And you want to find out, how the firm supports that. And many firms, big and small, they all have some aspect of this, right? And you might want to also ask, what are some pro bono or charity work that the employees, either with the firm's financial support or without, what are some of the things that they get involved in, right? That I might be also excited about and considered as a plus when I'm comparing offers. And this is something that's kind of important to keep in mind during the entire job process. So you'll encounter open, positions, announcements for open positions, but you won't always find that for all of the firms. It doesn't mean that that firm isn't hiring, right? The process of when it's gotten so bad that they're putting out ads, so somebody is typing up, right, job description and all that, and posting at different places, that means there's an immediate, or they're projecting, right? So we're going to get this huge project and we need to staff up. So, we better hire, or we already have the project and somebody quit or whatever, we need this person right away. So that's one kind of hire. But there are other kinds of hires which are more long-term and strategic, right? And so if the firm is in a growth mode, so if it isn't for a specific project, a specific deadline, but if they're kind of the strategic goal of the firm is to, grow and to expand into a certain market, whatever, they are hiring, making strategic hires, not because they need that. Is it 1:30? Almost. I'll see you. Okay. Because not because they have an immediate position, but because of their long-range planning. Right, and so those positions are trickier to uncover, to find out. So this is where the networking helps. So next week we'll get to not next week. The next session after spring break, we're going to have some alumni come back. But when we reach out to alums, grad and undergrad, so the big firms tend to have larger numbers that they have to go through to hire and recruit. But the smaller firms is very different. So they almost never advertise positions. It's always usually through word of mouth, right? One intern is there, but he's leaving. So then through his contact of his network of friends, they find a replacement. Or they have an opening, but they don't post on the AIA or Glassdoor or Archinect. They just kind of ask their employees, oh, do you know anybody good, who we can hire, right? So use your network, really leverage the network to find out. So I think these are a little bit more things like this. I think if the atmosphere, the mood is right. So as you can kind of piggyback that on Matt's suggestion, where what are you looking for? What is your ideal candidate? And if you feel that it's going well, you might venture into something like this. And especially, I think this is rare, but if they say something like, we're glad to have met you, but you don't quite have the qualifications that we're looking for, and so you have nothing to lose at that point. Then you might ask, just as a like so that I can improve myself for my future, interviews and performances. Is there any advice that you might give me in the way that I presented myself on my work, right?
They tell you that on the spot that you're not hired.
I think it's rare, but it could be where even if they made that snap decision, they might not reveal it, or they might.
So generally, if you do an email or something.
If they choose not to hire you,
Yeah.
it's usually after the fact. Yeah, through email.
On the spot, though, they'll like say if they're looking for somebody that has like 10 years.
Yeah,
experience,
yeah.
They're just interviewing you for.
Right. So they might say, we don't have a position open right now, but it looked very attractive. Your application looked attractive, and so we wanted to meet you, but we're not going to hire right now. Okay, after the interview, so how should you follow up? When should you follow up, and how much time should you spend on following? Yeah, right. Do it right away. Like that afternoon, that evening. Do it right away. And what should you say? So it's a thank you email. You send me an email. So make sure you get the business cards. If there was somebody else in the room who you didn't initially exchange emails with, make sure you get their business cards. So what are you saying in your thank you email? Oh, for the students? For the students? I'll hold on to it for now. Or actually, Gu can be the reminder. Thank you for meeting me today. Thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing from you.
I would say that you would kind of thank them for their time, but you'd also kind of reiterate or kind of elaborate on some of the conversations that you had.
Right.
So it kind of shows that you were paying attention, that you were thinking about it.
That you were listening, and that the enthusiasm you showed during the interview, it's still true and valid and authentic, and that you continue to be excited. And now that you learn more about the firm, there are other reasons why you think that it's really good fit, and you want to share that, right? So there should be content in the thank you email. What about LinkedIn? Should you ask to be connected through LinkedIn? No, it's fine. Yeah. Because whether or not you get hired or don't hire, you made initial contact. And you may never see that person again, but you might in a different context, right? You might run into them, hey, and this happens, more frequently than you would think. So value the time that they spent with you, that you spent with them, and build it into a relationship, regardless of the outcome.
You think they will accept when you send request?
You think they will accept the LinkedIn right in that afternoon when you request them?
When will they accept?
No,
it depends.
Do you think they will?
Don't pester them.
Yeah.
Just send them the invite once. Don't pester them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would. So, but it depends, because I don't check LinkedIn every day. So it might be a few days, but. And then this is a case by case. The email thank you, you did that, you reached out on LinkedIn, you still haven't heard yay or nay. Should you call them?
Yes.
It depends.
After the day.
It depends. So what's a really good idea is at the conclusion of the interview, write it down to remind yourself, but have the presence of mind to kind of ask for a rough timeline. When are you going to finalize the hiring decision, and what can I expect in terms of the schedule moving forward? So in other words, when can I expect to hear from you, whether or not it's a yes or no answer?
And at what point would you say that would be pestering? Would be kind of
So if you got a chance to ask, they give you a certain time frame. We're going to finalize in 2 weeks, 1 week, whatever, and then you can ask at that point. If I haven't heard from you, during by that time, can I call? Can I call you, or should I email you? What's the best way to get in touch with you, right? So you could do that. And if you didn't, if you don't know what their preferences are, what their policies are, call the receptionist and ask her. Okay, right? So when it's a small firm, everybody's busy. Even the receptionist, she's doing other things. So they don't want unnecessary phone calls. that's going to tie people up. So which is why they don't want phone calls. They don't want to be pestered. But in a larger office, you know, if there's a full-time receptionist, it's less of a factor. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Don't be late. Don't be defensive. Like, so you might have a hard interview. Like, for the most part, they are very, even if they see something that they would be critical of, they usually don't say it. But you might come across somebody who will, like, kind of in a confrontational manner. Don't get defensive, right? Just think of it as like you're pros at this because you've done, you know, so many presentations and critiques, right? So it's one of those, right? It's not personal. Just don't get defensive. Don't over apologize, right? Don't apologize for what's not there, what they don't know, right? And I think lastly, just, you know, don't be too casual. Be relaxed and comfortable. Be yourself, but still be a little bit nervous and eager and excited. And I think of all of these, I think this is kind of the most important, right? If you've finished the interview and you feel like, I really feel like I came across as myself, then that's a successful interview. But, you know, for whatever reason, because, you know, you got too nervous or whatever, like, you know, I don't feel like, you know, I showed, you know, my authentic self, then that's unfortunate. Okay, so very briefly. So Mimi is out sick today, so she had some input in this regard of what so this is kind of her, you know, request, you know, to new hires of what to expect and how. So we talked about the economic downturn. Layoffs do happen. It's not if, it's a matter of when. So how do you keep your job? Right, so these are some things that Mimi suggested, but what are they kind of, you know, how can we summarize? It's very...
Make sure that you're well known in the firm itself, so that way you don't get, like, just left behind.
So you're talking about reputation, but let's talk, what kind of reputation?
Somebody that's, like, trying to, like, proactively...
Somebody who
add to the...
So, like, the best case
firm.
scenario is Matt Hartley is a person who won't say no. He will tell us what the problem is and what he needs, what are the resources and the expertise and supervision that he needs, but he'll figure out a way. So I can trust Matt with the task when I give him that he's going to tell me what he's capable, what he's not capable of, and he's going to ask for the resources, and when I supply that to him, he's going to find a way to get it done. Or so-and-so is somebody who always says no first. They can probably do it, but their initial response is, you know, listing all the reasons why they can't get it done or they can't get it done by the deadline. Yeah. So reputation. So you want to be somebody, you know, who's proactive and kind of like, if I had to summarize, I have to go, but if I could summarize in kind of one sentence, like the gist of what Mimi wants, don't be passive. The people who are supervising you, they're busy. They don't have time to come and check in on you to see how you're doing. Are you done with your previous task and what are you doing next? You have to get in front of them. You have to be proactive, and you have to think of yourself as an active participant in the success of the office, right? So if you're sitting there like twiddling your thumb, not knowing what to do because you finished what you were asked to do, and you get found doing that, you're not going to keep your job. Don't do that. Okay? Ask lots of questions.
Right, and also I think because you're going to have peers in the office, and if there are things that you don't know about, like if it's a Revit command and you're stuck, you ask your peers as well. So you have to just problem solve your own individual situation, you know, in addition to being present with all your other supervisors, right? So you also have a network amongst yourselves that you need to branch out and connect internally in the office. You don't want to be a lonely silo.
Yeah. So make friends, network, and again, you know, don't wait to be told what to do.
Right.
Go and get the information. Go and find out what's next. Go and find out how you can be helpful to the team. Yeah. So I think we'll end it there.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of go over? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can skip this part.
Oh, we're going to cover that.
Yeah. So you should all watch the video. the YouTube, the presentation. So there's a presentation that was given here, like just a few weeks ago, that is from the horse's mouth. Okay, so an NCARB representative with a CAB, California Architecture Board representative, came to our school and gave an hour-long presentation. Right, so that video is on the school blog.
And he actually, both of them, Matt Fries, I forgot the other person, but they described the steps to licensure. So when you get to your office, you actually inquire about the IDP. And then let me just finish. Good luck on your trip, too. Oh, this is the one that Karen is referring to. We actually have that taped. Okay, yeah. Right. And that's the specific presentation. We're going to send you all links, and Tracy has that path, so we'll send that out. Okay. All right. So this is the IDP that we're referring to. There are specific steps, meaning when you first get to the office as the beginning intern, you should start the paperwork so that your office is also going to assign you to work that would meet the IDP qualifications. So you should just log in and start an account with NCARB, because that's the beginning of your licensure. So there's like 7 component parts to that, and it takes time. It takes like 3 to 4 years to fulfill each segment of it. So we're encouraging all of you to start right away. Don't wait. And also your supervisors sign the paperwork. So you just need to be on top of all of that as well. It's really your responsibility to record those hours and then have sign off. And then that's the reason why you start your account, right? You log back into the NCARB and you get all this information registered. This piece is really talking about the exam, that when you have actually fulfilled the 7 steps before taking the exam. This is the piece about the component parts of the exam and how long it takes. And then you can choose which one. So there's 3, 4, 5. It used to be 7, but now there's 6. So for example, you may feel, and you have books that you will be studying with, both with the AIA and your office. Your new future office may also have these books online, like their tutorials online, as well as hardcover books that you'll share. And I'm pretty sure that there's a way to share it, because they're like $200, like this between $250. It's somewhere in that realm to buy it individually. You find a way to share it. Most offices are set up this way with material for each component part. So it's like the practice management, meaning how is an architectural practice run, the different kind of stages of like schematic design, design development. I won't go through all of that, but I just want to describe a little bit. Project management, meaning how is a team run? How do you get your work produced within a certain budget based on the salary, based on not only each salary of each individual, because it becomes a project budget salary. And that's the project management is, how does the work become produced in the firm for your client? Programming and analysis, which a lot of you are familiar with, right? Because you've taken classes, and every single studio project has the program and analysis component. That is on the exam. And then project planning and design. That's through the schematic design, design development, the CDs, the construction field work, construction observation. Okay. Project development and documentation, that's specifically the CDs, which about 60% of learning for the exam is actually in this part. And then construction and valuation, meaning after the drawings are done and you're out in the field observing, which is the most valuable part by the time you finish the loop. And you can kind of tell from the number of hours, the test duration, which ones are important. So the practice management, 2 hours and 45 minutes, which is different than project planning and project development and construction and documentation, right? It tells you where that 60% piece that I described earlier, that is the chunk. So you would choose what part of the exam you feel qualified to take, because you're not taking them all at one time. You choose to take one, excuse me, one at a time. These are statistics that it tells you what percentage passed the exam. So you have opportunities to retake the exam. So if you fail one component piece, 3 months after, you can sign up again to take that piece. But then in the interim, you can study for another aspect of the exam and take that exam. So don't ever be discouraged. It's very hard to pass all of these 6 pieces at once. Okay, so that's why we're sharing all these statistics with you. And then if you look at like 2016, the percentage of passing is actually a little more stable now because a lot of you are now in the profession. There's a fair amount of you taking the exam. So it's just an encouraging analysis. They even document the schools. I haven't looked at this chart carefully yet, but it tells from what school what percentages pass certain categories. We do know that structures is a very tough part of the exam, so that tends to take more time.
The programming and planning is only 20.
Yeah, that actually shouldn't be that difficult because there is a particular book that we use at school. So I think all of you, and we embed that in all your projects. So at least for the academy, you should pass that pretty readily. Okay. I think we do pretty decent. I mean, if you just look at us compared to the other schools, we're kind of in that, we're sort of in that mid-range. Some schools are higher, but that's okay. UCLA, but it's also a bigger school.
More people.
Yeah, Yeah, we're like right at the middle. And this is so the California supplemental exam, that piece is if you were licensed in a different state and you decide to come to California to practice. So that's what I took, because my first registration was in Texas, and then I moved here to California, and then I had to study, just like all of you will be studying, to take that exam. And that's all about the different documentations of how to file for permit, the California coastal environmental impacts that's particular to California. It's all the kind of legal framework of how to work in California. So there's hardly any design. It's mainly about contract documents and the environmental laws. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.